Snow drifted lazily past the tall windows of the quiet bookstore, blanketing the city in hushed white. Nora stood between two towering shelves, her gloved fingers tracing the spines of poetry collections she couldn't afford tonight. The warmth inside contrasted sharply with the bite outside, but it did little to thaw the ache in her chest. At 44, after losing her editing job to downsizing, every small luxury felt like a betrayal of the mounting bills waiting at home. She pulled a slim volume from the shelf, opened it, and let the words blur. A memory surfaced, her late husband reading to her on winter evenings just like this, his voice steady against the wind. She closed the book quickly, as if shutting the page could close the grief. Near the front, a man in a dark wool coat browsed the new releases. He moved slowly, deliberately, as though each choice mattered deeply. Mid-50s, salt in his beard, eyes that lingered longer than most on the covers. Nora noticed him glance her way once, then again, subtle, not intrusive. He selected a thick hardcover, carried it to the small reading nook by the window, and sat. The snow outside thickened, muffling the world further. Nora wandered closer, pretending interest in a nearby display. She could leave now, walk back into the cold, preserve her dwindling cash, but the store's quiet held her. The man opened his book, then paused. Without looking up, he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a second, smaller book, paperback worn at the edges, and placed it on the empty chair beside him, a quiet invitation, no words, no gesture toward her. Just the book waiting. Nora hesitated. Strangers didn't do this. Her instinct was to retreat, to protect the fragile space she guarded. But the cover caught her eye, a collection of winter poems, the exact one she'd been holding moments ago. How had he known? She sat slowly, leaving a respectful distance, picked up the book. The pages smelled faintly of cedar and old libraries. He turned a page in his own, unhurried. Through action alone he introduced himself, one who noticed details others overlooked. Nora opened to a marked page, a folded corner revealing a poem about loss in snowfall. Her throat tightened. Doubt crept in. Was this coincidence or calculation? She almost returned the book, stood to leave. But the words on the page anchored her, and she read on. Minutes passed in shared silence. Then, instinctively, he slid a bookmark from his pocket, simple cardstock, pressed with a dried leaf, and placed it between her pages. A small act, unannounced. Nora met his eyes for the first time. They were kind, tired, carrying their own quiet weight. She whispered thanks. He nodded, returned to his reading. No questions, no pressure. Just presence. As the store lights dimmed for closing, Nora closed the book, reluctant. The man stood, left his hardcover on the counter with a note for the clerk. Paid for, but addressed to no one. Then he took the poetry paperback from her hands gently, walked to the register and paid for that too. Nora watched, stunned. He returned, placed the book in her coat pocket without ceremony. For the walk home, he said softly, voice low and warm. Then he buttoned his coat, stepped into the snow, and disappeared down the street, footprints filling quickly behind him. She stood frozen until the clerk locked the door. The book weighed light in her pocket, but its presence heavy with meaning. That night in her small apartment, Nora read by lamplight. The poems spoke directly to her hollow places. She slept better than she had in months. Days turned to weeks. The bookstore became her refuge. She read the collection cover to cover, then began writing marginal notes, her own quiet responses to the verses. Money remained tight, but she took on freelance proofreading, each accepted gig a small victory. One stormy afternoon, a younger woman lingered in the same aisle, eyes red, tracing spines without seeing them. Nora noticed. Without thinking, she pulled a slim volume of hopeful verse from the shelf, placed it on the chair in the nook, and sat nearby with her own book. The woman hesitated, then sat, took the book. Their eyes met briefly. Recognition, gratitude, no words needed. Seasons shifted. Snow melted into spring rain, then summer light filtering through the windows. Nora's freelance work grew steady. She even submitted her own poems to a small journal, one accepted. The bookstore staff knew her by name now, saved new poetry arrivals for her. One December evening, snow falling again, Nora returned to the nook. A familiar dark wool coat hung on the rack. Her breath caught. He sat in the same spot, reading. Their eyes met across the shelves. He smiled faintly, nodded toward the empty chair. Nora sat, pulled the worn paperback from her bag, the same one now filled with her notes. She placed it gently on the small table between them. He opened it, read a few of her annotations, eyes softening. No grand reunion, no explanations, just quiet acknowledgement. Compassion, unannounced, had come full circle. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the city in fresh silence. In the end, as Nora walked home with a new book tucked under her arm, she paused under the street lamp. Sometimes kindness arrives without introduction, and stays long after the giver has gone. If this gentle, wordless exchange warmed a hidden corner of your heart, consider subscribing for more stories that honor the quiet beauty of human connection. Has kindness ever reached you completely without words? Share your moment below. I read every reply. And if that silent gesture still lingers with you, let the seat he left empty on purpose carry you into the next quiet revelation.